It's so somber in here while we wait for the last 30 seconds to tick down. Fire chief can sing, police chief can dance. No, that's why we do. Oh, yes, we do on all of the TVs. I don't know if I like that. All right, well, we have hit the magical 6 o'clock hour, so I'll go ahead and call the regular assembly meeting of Tuesday, May 11th, 2021 to order. Please join me for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sarah, roll call, please.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Present.
Mr. Christensen,
Here.
Ms. Nelson, here. Mr. Mosier,
Here.
Ms. Duncan, here. Ms. Himshoot, here. And Mr. Knox. And he's not here yet. Sorry, there was feedback on the mic, so I got distracted. He will be here momentarily.
Great, thank you. Any correspondence or agenda changes this evening? I noted a couple things of correspondence in our packets. No ceremonial matters, so that will bring us to special reports. Is there anyone for government to government? Municipal boards, commissions, committees? Municipal departments?
Mayor, got the we could have the police department come up and say a few words, please.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, honored assembly. Thank you for making a little time for me. I would just like to take a minute to acknowledge an employee of mine, Ken Buxton. He's retiring. You may have seen that in a newspaper. He's put in 10 years with us and has done an exceptional job. The community loves him, loves his work. He's had an exceptional work ethic and love for the animals and stuff. So he will be sorely missed, but he has decided to move on and pursue another course in his life. He wants to become a fisherman, and this is, he feels this is time for him to do that. So I just wanted to make a public acknowledgement of what great job he did. So thank you all.
Well, and we wish Mr. Buxton well on what this is his third retirement now. So maybe this time he'll get it right and have a retirement. So anyone else for municipal departments this evening? Anyone from the school district? And students and guests. All right, that brings us to, we do have two other special reports this evening on your agenda. The first will be a report from Search, a 6-month report.
Mayor, I don't believe Mr. Clement is here yet. Could we go ahead with the second report?
Yeah, if we have our Matthew
Matthew
Peterson and Adam Marshall on the line?
I'm here for
Matthew is here.
Great.
Okay, so a little bit sooner than expected. I hope you guys are ready to present though. So let's see, about 15 minutes here, if that works for you, and then that'll allow some time for assembly questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Assembly. I really appreciate the opportunity to present this evening along with Adam from Alaska Waste. I am Matthew Peterson, Municipal Manager with Republic Services, and we are your transportation disposal for solid waste, municipal solid waste partner. And We've been working with staff and a group of stakeholders from the community of Sitka, including ourselves, Alaska Marine Lines, Alaska Waste, and of course, staff from the community. There is a presentation. I don't know if I can see if you have access to that presentation. Sarah, is the presentation available to the assembly?
It's in their packet, but can you share it on
Oh,
your screen?
let's see if I can. Screen share. Is that presentation available to you now?
It's not on the screen, but we do have it in our packet.
So I think Grant just made you co-host, so try it again.
I don't see that I'm having success. So for that, I apologize. And if you would please join me along with your packet slides, and we'll work from there.
Sarah, is there a way that one of us can put it up there so the public can see what we're talking about? Sorry to interrupt, sir.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
If we want to take a few minute break, I can put it on a PowerPoint and we can, it has to be projected from that computer over there.
It's a pretty important issue. I think the public should be well informed on what's going on with our solid waste situation. So yeah, if we could take a 5-minute recess, everyone, while Sarah gets this PowerPoint going, and much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Matthew, are you able to see what slide we're on?
Yes, we're on slide number 1.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm a fan of it. All right, well, we'll go ahead and reconvene. We got the PowerPoint up here. Matthew, if you are ready to go, please, sir.
Yes, and so as we progress along, I will just go ahead and ask for the next slide when appropriate, if that works for those on hand.
Yes, thank you.
So if we could go ahead and move to the second slide. Just some photos introduction. Again, Republic Services is your solid waste transport and disposal partner. We've been partnered with the city of Sitka for approximately 20 years, a little more than 20 years, and have served in that role. Our partner for transportation on the barge line is Alaska Marine Lines. We service communities throughout Southeast, including Sitka, Kilowak, Petersburg, Wrangell, and Ketchikan. That material is moved south to Seattle, where it is offloaded at the AML port and then trucked over to our railhead in Seattle at our Third and Lander facility. There it rides the rails with the BNSF Railroad to the Roosevelt Regional Landfill for final disposal. Next slide. So the purpose of today's presentation is to focus on an effort that we've been embarked on since early 2017, following two significant fires on AML barges, the first being in 2010 and the second in October of 2016. In both cases, those fires were originated in solid waste containers, originated in the city of Sitka. This is a photograph of the 2010 fire that occurred out at sea and was responded to by the Coast Guard. So again, a brief history. Next slide, please. And I'm going to try to click through this a little bit quickly. I know that we have 15 minutes scheduled, so if you would like me to slow down or speed up, please go ahead and indicate so that we are hitting on anything that if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to ask, and we'll work through them as we move along. So again, brief history: two significant fires, one in 2010, second in 2016. Following the 2016 occurrence, AML notified Republic Services of their intention to discontinue service for municipal solid waste loads in open top containers. In early 2017, Republic Services and AML began to work with local communities to educate on unacceptable waste and fire mitigation measures, with the goal of achieving compacted waste in closed top containers for the future of solid waste systems. Since that time, there have been two additional fire responses this past summer in the city of Sitka at the transfer facility. Those incidents were traced to signal flares in material deposited at the transfer station. Those fire responses were responded to by the Sitka Fire Department and helped with mitigation from partnership at Alaska Waste. Additional unrelated fire also occurred this summer from the community of Wrangell. In that incident, there was a burning load that was uncovered in Ketchikan and set aside where the Ketchikan fire was able to respond overnight and put that container out on the AML dock before that particular unit was loaded onto the barge for transport to Seattle. On October 15th, AML notified Republic Services of their intent to refuse service of open-top equipment effective June 1st of 2021, unless significant measures were taken and adopted to mitigate the fire risk. Risk and liabilities. Container fires are an avoidable risk, and it is in the public health and safety interest that we address this issue. Resulting damage from solid waste equipment and collateral property damage increases the cost of services and also leads to the loss of service, higher liability risks to partners and communities in Southeast Alaska. With this, the community of origin is liable for the damages for improper handling of waste. Alaska Marine Lines is unable to continue to accept the risk of uncompacted waste at this time and has signaled that they are, again, effective June 1, no longer going to accept open-topped MSW containers from Republic Services from customers throughout Southeast Alaska. The Sitka stakeholders group, our approach was simple, and that was to look at every available option that we could mitigate the risk, meet the requirements from AML to achieve compacted waste, and search out all reasonable alternatives. Again, as indicated earlier, this included staff from the city and borough of Sitka, representation from Republic Services, Alaska Waste, and Alaska Marine Lines. And the goal was to work collaboratively to evaluate all options and identify recommendations to mitigate future fire risk associated with current practices of processing municipal solid waste. I apologize. Next slide. Next slide. And then next slide. With this approach, we focused on the methodology of compaction. Again, in Sitka and other neighboring communities, we have three partners in Southeast Alaska: Sitka, Klawock, and Wrangell, who are still currently utilizing open-top equipment. In those communities, the current methodology is to top load that at the transfer facility, packing open-top containers with a backhoe or a excavator type equipment. We looked at ways that we could retrofit sealed lids for the purpose of maintaining this methodology of compaction and loading. We looked at additional lidded style containers with a purpose-built lid shoebox style container that would replace the current 48-foot open tops. We also looked at utilizing baling material similar to what Sitka currently utilizes for their recyclables. With this, the baled material would be compressed into bales and loaded into closed top containers that would be rear loaded with a forklift or similar equipment and shipped south. And finally, the third methodology of loading and compaction utilizes a preloader compactor. This is a ram style compactor that loads into a hopper type receptacle, compresses the material into what we refer to as a loaf, and then ejects from the compactor unit into a closed top container, and is very efficient and a known and trusted methodology to eliminate both underweight fees, getting the weights of the loads up to the contractual limits, saving the community dollars in the long run, and also has been determined to be the safest methodology of compaction and shipping for this purpose. Next slide, please. Again, a little bit more about the retrofitted lid system. This is a two-piece 24-foot lid system retrofitted to fit our 48-foot open-top containers. These units do not seal tight. There's need for some additional handling that includes cost to remove and replace the lids, whether it be at the transfer facility or at the shipping yard. There's additional maintenance costs. The initial cost to start up this methodology of capping the units costs approximately $40,000 per unit. We would need approximately 50 units to accomplish this, and the startup cost of that would be about $2 million. This system is not currently widely used in the waste system, and this was an effort to find the most reasonably priced alternative that would accomplish the goal. Next slide, please. Next is the purpose-built lidded container or shoebox container. This does provide for an airtight seal, which is beneficial in mitigating the risk. The need for additional handling costs to remove and replace at the transfer facility, and I do believe that the pricing on these two items are actually transversed. The cost of the two-piece system was $12,000 to $15,000 per unit, which would be an initial cost of $250,000 to $300,000 to implement that system, and the purpose-built new unit would be about $40,000 per unit. That's lid and container, and would cost approximately $2 million for the shoebox style container. Finally, the third methodology is the fully enclosed 48-foot sealed container. This is a container that is widely used in the waste industry. Currently, Republic Services has a large number of these units, and would be able to quickly adapt this unit to either a baler or a compactor system if it were to be adopted by the city of Sitka. These are built to durable and rugged MSW standards, and does provide for an airtight seal. With compaction is the best methodology to mitigate potential risks from fires. The methodologies of compaction, we looked at both a baler system and a compactor system as potential alternatives to the current top loading facility that is in use in Sitka. With a baler facility, the initial purchase of a baler, we looked at used Harris, Gorilla, or Centurion balers at the cost of $150,000 to $200,000 for a used
Matthew,
unit. Yes.
could you indicate what slide we need to be on?
Oh,
I don't
I'm
have
so
control over the
sorry.
slides.
Yes, I apologize. So again, I keep going from my notes and
We're 2 slides behind.
yeah, 2 sides. Thank you. That's where we're at. And again, I apologize for that. So the baler system, we looked at a used Harris baler, Gorilla, or Centurion unit. This requires 480 volts to operate. The cost is $150,000 to $200,000 for a used unit. This would also necessitate some additional equipment to load the containers. That would include a forklift to rear load the containers with the baled material, and a portable ramp to access the back of the trailer. The cost of a forklift is estimated between $55,000 and $60,000, with a portable loading ramp approximately $20,000. Next slide, please. With the preload compactor methodology, we've looked at a couple of different options, and Republic Services has proposed an option as well. Looking at used SSI 2500 compactors. 2500 is the model. Used unit is approximately $492,000 compared to a new unit of the same model, approximately $900,000. Prototype that Republic Services and SSI is looking at is a much smaller unit that we found utilized in Southeast Asia. The initial cost is about $525,000. With this, though, Republic Services has access. Next slide, please. Republic Services has access to a 1996 AmFam Transpac TP 2500 preload compactor that is currently in use at our Ferndale, Washington facility. This unit is being removed and replaced in Ferndale, and we are replacing it with a new SSI unit, but this unit is fully functional and currently processes approximately 35,000 tons per year. And compared to Sitka's approximately 9,000 tons, this unit is functional and ready to go. It has been maintained by Republic Services stringent maintenance and repair process and schedules. Republic Services is looking to make this available to the community of Sitka for the cost of $1, and will also commit up to $25,000 towards the refurbishment of the unit, and arrange for transportation from Ferndale to Sitka at our own expense through a partnership with AML, who is also looking to step up to participate in making this unit available if the community were to select to utilize this equipment. With that, Sitka would be responsible for the installation of the unit and would need to do some upgrades to the transfer facility. Adam will address that here shortly, but I do want to recognize that. Early estimates on what it would take to make that unit ready to go, fully gone through by a technician. The cost could be anywhere between $50,000 and $250,000, depending on what you wanted to accomplish with that unit, whether it be getting it installed and utilizing it for a temporary or a short-term solution, or if you wanted more of a long-term solution that would likely cost more dollars to fully refurbish that unit. Next slide, please. So with the methodologies that I described, we were also asked to look at the impacts to the current contracts, whether that be Republic Services transportation and disposal contract, or Waste Connections, Alaska Waste transload operations contract with the city and borough of Sitka. For the transportation and disposal impacts, the city and borough of Sitka and Republic Services have no additional impacts to the transportation disposal agreement with the implementation of either a baler or compacted waste in closed top containers. Again, Republic Services can make the transition quickly to provide the sealed containers to be rear loaded with either baled or compacted material. With the prospect of a retrofitted lid system or shoebox style containers, additional expenses would need to be negotiated within the transportation disposal agreement to account for equipment costs and operational handling of the lids, either at the transfer facility, AML yard, or the landfill. The Sitka solid waste system would benefit from higher average container weights with either a baled or compacted system. This would provide economic benefit through the elimination of underweight container penalties. Next slide, please. Impacts to the transfer station operations. Again, Adam Minshaw is here with me from Alaska Waste today. And Adam, do you want to take over at this point and discuss the transfer station operations?
Yeah, I can help with this. So if we were to go to the baler operation, so per our contract, the transfer station is built for top load container, and that's kind of what we're doing. That is what we're doing. So if we were to move like to a baler option, transportation and traffic would have to be rerouted. You would have to change transportation form to get the baler in there. As it is, we have a baler at the recycle center. So if one baler was to go down, we could, if we modify the transportation in a way that it was possible to have both balers there would be duality. But the main problem with a kind of a baler situation is the C&D processing. So the city of Sitka kind of has they have a small area to dispose of C&D. And so it would, you'd have to divert the waste stream in that form and fashion, and it would require additional staffing between, having to operate the forklift and maintain the balers and kind of, navigate the trailer system. And so it would be kind of a complete redo as far as the footprint of the transfer station goes, which is why, it's kind of a last waste stance is like a baler operation. It would be really difficult for the city of Sitka. So, I mean, if we were to go to the next slide, I believe we talked about the impact of like preload compactor. So as far as the way the transfer station is set up right now, if we were to move to a preload compactor, you could make less modifications to the transfer station. So you could still theoretically slide a container in kind of where the footprint is now. And then if there was ever, a breakdown with the compactor, we could take and put a top load container in there, and we could still put material in that. AML said that, if there's an event of a breakdown, we could use a top load container to ship until we got the compactor fixed. But as a compactor is a significant piece of machinery, so we would still need probably an additional headcount to maintain it, as we would also, because we're also maintaining our hauling operations there as well. So the transfer, then when you think about things like our spring cleanup event and whatnot, that would be a kind of a difficult task as well for some, even with a compactor, because, as a lot of C&D goes through the transfer station during the spring cleanup event. So, I mean, there's going to be a bit of change if that's an option that the city goes towards.
Thank you, Adam. So as the stakeholders group considered all options, one option that the staff asked us to dig into and explore is what if we did nothing? what if we made no changes to the Sitka solid waste system? What would the impacts be, and what would be the foreseen outcomes? So if we did nothing, the outlook is not a positive one. With no change to the system, AML will effectively refuse service for open top containers effective June 1. They will discontinue service, and that will trigger the alternative transportation clause in the agreement between the city of Sitka and Republic Services. Republic Services has been working for some time to identify potential alternative transportation, and has had quite a bit of difficulty in doing so. We have made contact with a couple of shippers in the area that would be looking to start up a new service with transportation from Ketchikan to Seattle. But those options are not proving to be fiscally responsible, and would not be recommended. But if the option was that is what we have to do, that is what we will be prepared to do. Under the current transportation and disposal agreement, the cost of an alternative transportation would be borne by the city of Sitka. So additional transportation fees, we believe, would quickly outweigh the benefits and the costs associated with making a transition. With that, it brings us to recommendations. So next slide. Okay, and that's where we discuss the do nothing option. Next slide is recommendations. It is based on all items considered. The members of the Sitka Solid Waste Stakeholders Group representing Republic Services Alaska Waste concur that the most effective methodology to provide security, certainty, and the greatest economic benefit for the duration of the current transportation disposal and transfer station operations agreements, which both, I believe, are approximately the next 10 years, is in fact to make the transition to compacted solid waste in closed top containers through the implementation of a preload compactor at the Sitka transfer facility. With that, I'll open it up to questions.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Unfortunately for me, it did raise more questions than answers, definitely. But if the assembly, we're getting a little bit short on time, but if the assembly had questions, now would be the time, please. And it doesn't look like anybody does, but I have a couple for you, Matthew, while we have you. One question that I haven't been able to get an answer from, and I actually saw multiple different opposing points in this presentation, was, will AML accept the closed top containers without compaction, without preload compaction?
I think it'd be very difficult to do. You could.
Well, it's not a difficult to do. It's, will they accept it?
I cannot speak for AML for that. But what I could tell you though is without compaction, the city would be penalized for underweight containers at a much higher rate. So I did this exercise with a smaller community in the Southeast.
Okay, and then another question, since we're running short on time
Yes,
here.
sorry about that.
Who's responsible for providing effective and reasonable containers in our contract?
Republic Services is responsible for provision of the containers.
Okay, thank you. And then you stated that compaction is a known methodology, which is the safest, and that you had reports on that. I trust that you could forward those reports to the assembly for review.
I didn't mention specific reports, but it is our experience utilizing this equipment throughout our systems that the compacted waste in closed top containers, we have few to no experience having fires in those. And in my 8 years of service with the company, I have had 0 incidents of container fires in closed top containers with compacted waste.
Have you had any when closed top containers without compaction?
I don't have any customers that do not compact their waste in either baled or preload compactors in the closed top containers.
Okay, thank you. And then one last question for you. The contract says that you have the ability to have someone here in Sitka to inspect the municipal solid waste before it leaves. Is that a route that you're going to do to help prevent fire risk and to increase the safety of our mariners at sea?
I'll have to go back to my team and ask that question. I don't have that answer with me tonight.
Okay, because it seems like if we're really trying to make people safe, that would definitely be a solid step forward. So, and with that, Kevin Knox has some questions for you.
So you've made reference several times to the fact that the community could see savings over the short and long term if we didn't have the underweight container penalties assessed. Do you have a figure for that? Like, are we saving thousands or hundreds of thousands? What is the savings there? And, does it even equate to anything significant enough that we can look at some options here?
Yeah, so based on the last number of years, prior to Alaska Waste Connections taking buying the Alaska Waste brand, the underweight container fees that the community of Sitka was paying was in the ballpark of $460,000 to $480,000 per year, and that was due to container weights that were around 22 tons per unit. Our contractual limit or minimum is 29 tons. Adam and his staff have done an excellent job in getting those container weights up into the 26-ton range. And I would have to look to staff, or Sitka staff, or go back to my finance team. But I would estimate that the current delta would be about $180,000, $150,000 to $180,000 per year with underweight fees. So over the course of the next 10 years of the contract, I would say yes, the underweight fee impacts are significant.
Anything else from the assembly? Great. As you know, it would take 2 meetings for the assembly to pass anything. So that puts June 1st, coming up real soon. I've been on the assembly for a significant amount of time now, and I think it's unfortunate that we haven't had this presentation in all the years that you've been working on this issue. It feels like it's too little, too late, unfortunately, at this point. So it'll be interesting to see what June 1st brings around. And I hope that you can continue to be an upfront partner with us, because right now I feel ramrodded. And I think that's a very unfortunate position to be in. So if the assembly has nothing else for Mr. Peterson here, we can go on to our next presentation. Thank you, Matthew. Do appreciate your time tonight. And we all have a copy of this presentation. Does city staff have an email address for you that we could send emails to with questions?
Yes, my email address staff does have, but I'll state it here. It is mpeterson, and that's PED as in David, ERSON @republicservices.com. And my cellular phone number is 509-808-9909.
Great. Thank you for the contact information. Much appreciated. And thank you, Adam, for your time this evening as well.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So that'll bring us to Search President Charles Clement, 6-month report on the Sitka's integrated healthcare system. Mr. Clement, please. Yeah, and if you could hit your microphone in front of you as well. Thank you.
Well, hello, everybody. It's always a pleasure to come and present before you what's been happening at Search, specifically with regards to activities here in Sitka. As I'm sure you could well imagine, it continues to be action-packed, but I do like to think that we're making some very positive progress in the community and within the region. And I'll give you a brief update on that today, and then maybe open up for questions if there's time in your agenda. I have a very quick slide presentation, and I think, again, it's probably somewhat obvious what we've been up to through these COVID times. There's been a lot of emphasis. I just got a report this morning. We're really starting to make the transition between testing and vaccinations. Up until this point, this latest couple of weeks, we've been doing a large amount of testing still, but this last week, it's actually fallen off quite a bit. As we have transitioned over these last several months to do quite a bit of vaccination. And in fact, we're happy to announce that we are actually signing youth 12 and above up for vaccinations when that final approval does come in. I think we expect it either by late day tomorrow or Thursday. We do have youth in the community here already signed up and ready to go. And we have vaccines here in town ready to deploy as well. And I'm skipping ahead of my slides. Megan's going to kill me. I guess, first of all, I should say, one of the original commitments that Search has made to the community here and to the region with regards to our partnership on the merger and integration of Sitka Community Hospital is to enhance specialty care and specialty services. We continue to do that since the last time that we have met. We've enhanced our neurology services here, our cardiology services, and there is now a full-time orthopedic program, which we had a half-time, basically two weeks on, 2 weeks off. Now we have a couple different individuals coming in, and we brought on some podiatry services. We continue to look and evaluate other service line enhancements and additions. We continue to be excited about what that looks like going forward. But I do think it's been interesting through these challenging times. We've been able to go ahead and stay on track with those enhancements. And this slide is talking about how many doses of vaccine we've deployed here in somebody, the real expert. I don't know where my guy is. He got me down a little bit. We continue to deploy quite a few vaccines here in Sitka. The acceptance rates throughout Southeast Alaska have varied. Sitka has a fairly high acceptance rates of vaccinations. We're happy to have that be the case. It is not the case in every community. Again, it is kind of a community by community basis, but we deployed over 8,000 doses here in Sitka. Almost 60,000 tests have been deployed here as well. As I think you're going to talk about later, some of the expansion activities going on and where we're at with that. We continue to work through the design aspects. We've begun various components. I think over here in Alice Loop, we've begun some employee housing activities. We're doing in the next couple of weeks, we'll begin some additional on-site remediation of contaminated soils on the new hospital site. We have a project on Halibut Point Road that is a multifamily housing development as well that we continue to chip away at. We are in the process of hopefully finalizing our agreement with Indian Health Service for their portion of that collaboration. But again, we're not holding anything back. We continue to move forward in various ways. Things that are ready to go, we're moving forward on. Additional things have taken more time and planning and execution. I think we're learning a lot about the infrastructure of the city of Sitka with regards to electricity, sewer, water. I've learned more about the infrastructure on Drapinski Island than I ever wished, hoped, or desired to know. But we continue to move forward, I think, in a relatively constructive fashion. Again, those things that can move forward are moving forward. And those things that are just taking a little bit more time, we continue to work through them with various partners and agencies. I do believe there is a packet that has been distributed to you for your keeping, and that will be sort of the summary aspect of my report. But I know there's usually questions from various assembly members, and I'm happy to try to answer those the best I can if that is your will.
Does the assembly have anything? Mr. Mosier?
Hi, Mr. Clement. First of all, I want to say thank you for everything Search is doing. I think that the expanded healthcare and services has been tremendous. I appreciate it very much. As far as the response with COVID, I think it's been excellent. And I think the collaboration with Search and the community has been wonderful. And I very much appreciate that. I just did want to follow up with a question I asked you at the last meeting about the cost of services. And this is just a question that I had. You know, this isn't just a few. I've had several people over a wide spectrum of types of people that are saying that the costs of some of their services have drastically increased, up to the point where, and I didn't know this when I asked you that question, that some people who can afford it are actually leaving town to provide to, you know, where they can get better or the same services, but for a more affordable price. So at the last meeting, I asked you that question though, and you promised me you would answer. I haven't received anything except for.
I've come prepared to answer that question.
Thank you.
As best as I can, as I'm qualified. So I knew this was, or I didn't know, who knows what, but I sort of anticipated that this might be a part of the conversation today. And so I did a little bit of digging with my team over in Juneau and here in Sitka. And what I could share with you, I mean, I could speak in generalities about pricing. And obviously each and every circumstance is going to be different because we charge different amount for different procedures. But the pricing as it exists at Search and at within Mount Edgecombe Hospital and within Mountainside and the Sitka Medical Center, the pricing was established prior to the integration of Sitka Community Hospital. And the prices were based on the average cost of any given procedure in the state of Alaska. So the price was set at the average. And after analysis of those prices, for any activity, any service that was provided where there was a lower price provided at Sitka Community Hospital, we lowered our price below that by a nominal amount. So it was either the average or the lower of the prices that were already in effect between Sitka Community Hospital and Mount Edgecombe Hospital. Since that time, there has been no wholesale repricing of any services. There have been new services brought on that were not available at any price before, but there have been inflationary adjustments. And those generally go between, you know, it's a percentage basis and they're sort of contractually limited by the agreements that we have in place with insurance providers. I have a bunch of statistics here that talks about the average costs. I mean, it, you know, doesn't talk about the individual cost of each particular thing, but when you average it all out, it would seem to us that the costs still, they continue to fall within the realm of reasonableness. And I think one of the areas of sensitivity, because in most communities that Search provides service in, I do believe we have to hold ourselves to a different level of scrutiny to avoid the perception of monopolistic behavior. And so that's sort of the story of the pricing. Again, there has been no wholesale repricing of any services. I've been assured by my folks. And I think the most we can increase the prices of any particular item are really sort of limited again by those agreements, those insurance agreements that are in place.
Okay, thank you. And I understand that perhaps, you know, for the merger as well, Sitka Community Hospital may have had to adjust prices. And I understand that prices have to increase to be able to be profitable. It was just something that's been on my mind and you know, people have been talking to me about this. And so I appreciate your answer.
I think one of the things that probably warrants and is interesting, I do this all the time. I assume people know things and they don't. One of the things that Search does do in Sitka is that we do make available a sliding fee scale for people that fall within certain income ranges. And that is a program we use for communities where we have a HRSA clinic. Sitka actually does not qualify for a HRSA clinic. So we extend that program at our own expense to the community of Sitka. So if you fall within certain income sort of brackets, you qualify for a larger increase. The lower the brackets you go down.
Can you explain HRSA? I'm sorry. I don't know the term.
HRSA are community health centers.
Okay, thanks.
So in large communities, they're really designated for income challenged populations. And Sitka is not generally qualified between there's a whole weighted factor that has to do with healthcare affordability, healthcare availability, and average income. And so in every community, with the exception of Sitka, and in some ways Juneau, but Juneau, we do run a HRSA clinic, but it's a very particular one. Almost every other community in Southeast that we provide service in qualifies for a community health center, which is, it's kind of like, it's somewhat similar to our contract with the Indian Health Service. We're providing healthcare for a certain set of the population. And if they can't afford it, the grant pays for that. Again, historically, Sitka has not qualified for that, but just in terms of trying to have a program parity, what's available for our patients in every community, we've just decided that we would apply those practices to the community.
I do appreciate that, the sliding scale. I was informed of that. That's very helpful, especially for people who really don't have insurance. It's an interesting balancing act that folks will have, or having to learn how to provide. We're not, we don't own you. We don't tell you what to do. You're free to do as you please. But it will be interesting for you as you go forward to learn how to balance trying to make these prices competitive. Because even though we have you have a sliding scale, if all of our insurance rates go up, inevitably, eventually they will, if the costs are a little too high. In time, I believe that they will.
Yeah.
So I understand that I guess I'm just hoping that in your financial analysis, your people are looking at that and trying to find that balancing act.
Absolutely. And I do think, it's a very interesting philosophical conversation. And I think, we're trying to be responsible in terms of enhancing the services, providing more specialty care, providing new equipment, new facilities, and ensuring that people get the health care that we need. Ultimately, we do perceive ourselves as community partners, and we're in the healthcare business. We're here to provide healthcare. That's what we aspire to do. And if you can't afford it, we can't do it. But there also is a business side to that as well, to ensure that we're being responsible stewards of those resources. So
thank you.
Yeah. And Rebecca, you had?
Yeah, I wanted to, before I ask you my question, I just wanted to recognize both Search and other providers in the community who've worked so hard on the vaccination campaign, and it's gone really well. So thank you for that. And I'm also grateful for the increase in specialty services. I think that's been a need for a while in Sitka, so it's nice to see that. A specialty service that I don't see increasing that I'm hearing in the community is needed would be behavioral health. Can you enlighten us to any plans Search has to expand whatever you're already offering? It seems I keep hearing repeatedly about the need for a range of behavioral health services in Sitka.
Absolutely. So it's interesting. We just had a kind of like we're doing a 6-month checkup today. We did our budget halfway through the year checkup internally this morning at Search as well. And I can't get into specifics, but I think the need for more and enhanced and varied behavioral health services is widely acknowledged within Search, and it's not unique to Sitka. I think especially in these times over this past 18 months now that we've been through, it's really been highlighted. And I guess what I can say is, yes, you are correct. And we have been, and we continue to make enhancements, but actually as of today, I mean, there's some very real concrete investments coming in enhanced and expanded behavioral health services throughout Southeast Alaska, including here in Sitka.
I can follow up. I'm going to take that as a commitment, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely, for sure.
I don't know the financial side of running a hospital.
Mhm.
I have no clue about that. I just know that there's a need here, and I'm hoping you'll meet our need. So thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, and what I could share, you know, I again, this was a conversation I had this morning, so it's not a fully baked, but I can tell you that, you know, various agencies that we partner with recognize that this is a problem. And we've received funds through our various partnerships, through HRSA for community health center activities, through the Indian Health Service, through that FCC for telebehavioral health. I mean, so this is a widely acknowledged situation that is evolving rapidly, and there are very direct and concrete financial commitments being made. And yes, you can take that as a commitment.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the assembly this evening? Great. Well, thank you for your time this evening. Always
Absolutely.
appreciate your 6-month updates, and then anything we get in the meantime. So appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Sorry, I was late too. I'm trying to get off the phone as quickly as possible.
It just made you have to stay even longer. So.
I know a lot about waste.
All right. So I know it's the top of the hour, but let's get through persons to be heard, and then we will take a recess. So is there any persons to be heard this evening for any item not on tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes?
Good evening. My name is Richard Ween. And a couple of things that I wish to report in the state of Alaska is the incredible expansion, especially initiated with COVID through telemedicine, and especially as it relates to behavioral health. And so I think that those needs are currently being are currently being addressed, and there may be some very good things coming from that. As far as Ken Buxton goes, I think he'll find it easier to catch dogs than catching fish, but I wish him good luck. And I also want to give a shout out to Dan Edlin, TV Dan, who dutifully comes here every week. And I will give him a virtual certificate of thank you for his duty and commitment to the city assembly meetings. The interesting thing is that commodities have been rising, and it's been part of a major headline, not only lumber, but foodstuffs, as well as strategic metals, rare earth metals, et cetera. And the important thing to note is, and here was a question, I'm sorry, Mr. Clement isn't here. Since it's so many years in advance before the hospital is done, I was wondering how all of these incredibly expensive increases in commodity prices will affect the bottom line for the hospital. Currently, it was listed at $330 million. And so it can only go up from there. Another aspect which should be is that before Sitka Community closed, they had this thing called price transparency. Not only does Alaska would like price transparency in medical services, but so the federal government has an interest. And I think it would behoove, in relation to Assemblyman Mosier's question, that they literally post the most common costs of procedures when you walk into the hospital. And I know that did that at Sitka Community Hospital, because that is a very big question that people have, is how much do things cost? And there is a real issue around the country with what's called cost surprise. You go in, you have a well-meaning procedure, and then you receive your bills much to your dismay. So cost and price transparency in medicine is very important. Thank you.
Is there anyone else this evening for persons to be heard? Any item not on tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none, Assembly will take a 5-minute recess and then jump back in with consent agenda. Thank you.
All right, and we'll get going in just a second here. Yes, actually. All right, so we'll go ahead and jump back in, which brings us to consent agenda this evening.
I move to approve the consent agenda consisting of item A, approving the minutes of the April 27th Assembly meeting, and item B, approving liquor license renewal applications for Mean Queen upstairs and downstairs at 205 Harbor Drive, and Trinity Business Services LLC, DBA Halibut Point Crab and Brew at 4513 Halibut Point Road.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any public comment? Seeing none. Sarah?
Okay, on the motion to approve the consent agenda consisting of item.
I
oh,
just
sorry.
need to make note that I might have a possible conflict because my husband is building an apartment that they might rent. I don't think it's going to sway my vote.
So you have not yet rented an apartment to someone who's not yet building something?
No, we have not.
Okay. I would think that you can continue on this. Sarah?
Okay, on the motion to approve the consent agenda, Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
Mr. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Ms. Duncan,
Yes.
Ms. Himshoot,
Yes.
and Ms. Nelson.
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0 on the consent agenda.
Item C.
I move to approve ordinance 2021-08 on second and final reading, making supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2021, Sitka Community Hospital Dedicated Fund.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve ordinance 21-08. Is there any public comment?
Richard Ween. This is old news, and I just have to remind people how much this supplement is. What is it? 466,000. The majority of it is for legal fees related to community hospital, as well as the unconscionable cost for the Cerner electronic medical record. So approve it. And if you don't have the money, print it. Thank you.
Is there any other comment to item C? Assembly deliberation? Mr. Knox?
And just to be clear, it's an appropriation in the amount of 425,000 to cover long-term contracts, legal expenses, and increased unemployment costs.
Any other assembly deliberation? Sarah?
On the motion to approve ordinance 2021-08 on second and final reading, Mr. Knox,
Yes.
Ms. Duncan,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
Ms. Himshoot,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
and Ms. Nelson.
No.
Motion passes 6-1.
All right, new business first reading, item D.
I move to approve ordinance 2021-09 on first reading, adopting budgets and capital improvement plan for the general fund, internal service funds, and special revenue funds for the fiscal year July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 21-09. Is there any public comment?
Richard Ween. Really not much to say about this. Not much has been done with the budget per se, but the memo has some telling points, and that is it's balancing the budget out of a surplus. And also another note was that this is the second year that that there has been no transfer out for capital, general capital improvement. Also noted is that the rate increases are the minimum, though some people might feel that even though the word minimum is there, that that is substantial to their budget. So life is a relative and contextual thing. Nothing to say about the budget, just another pass through. And I just wish us well in the future and stop living check by check.
Is there any other public comment to the ordinance? Assembly deliberation? Valerie?
I have several comments, and some of them probably relate to the electrical or enterprise funds. But first off, I just wanted to point out discrepancies I found, and maybe you guys have already brought them up and maybe you know them, but they shouldn't be in here if they're not correct. In fiscal year 21, we had an HR assistant based at 0. And so we added that position back in this year, but you know, we did have Sharon there that was working part-time as HR director and whatnot. But the bottom line is we've gained 5 employees and we've increased the dollar amount per hour by $174.78. So you take that and you multiply that by $2,080 or 2,080 hours, because that's what there is in a fiscal year. And it comes out to $363,542.40 that we were adding on top of what we've already been paying in wages. I see that some people are getting 20 to 40% wage increases. Those really trouble me, and I haven't been able to get it, you know, a justification. I do see that in the police department, the lieutenant of operations last year was listed at $43.51. This year it's listed as $60.10. The lieutenant of services last year was listed at $60.10, and now it's $40.30 in fiscal year 22. I think those two got turned around. The 5 new positions that I see are compliance officer in finance, a procurement specialist in finance. I see the assistant fire chief, and I guess I was at that meeting that you guys voted to put it back in. There's an asset manager in engineering. There's a contract manager in the electric department. And when I see a 43% wage increase, that's very troubling to me. And I've asked questions and nobody seems to want to answer it. So I can't vote for this until I get satisfactory answers. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to compliment the staff, especially Melissa, for how this process went this year. If you're listening in and you're just listening to this meeting, you think that we're not going to talk about this a whole lot, but we have for many, many, many hours. And I thought that it was a good process this year. It wasn't. It was transparent, and more often than not, if we had a question from left field, we had the answer, and the answer came quickly later if we did manage to stump them. I think the positions that were just mentioned earlier, I think good arguments were made that they're going to pay for themselves. And I know that the compliance officer already has paid, that position has paid for itself for the year and then some. A good HR director will most definitely keep you from losing a lot of money. And same with the other, they were all positions that will keep a better eye on our bottom line. So I have no problem with that. And I thought it was interesting, the kind of matrix that was shown us comparing, talking about the number of employees we have for our population and just how low that is. But again, I just wanted to compliment the staff on the process this year and how easy it was to understand what they were trying to tell us.
Kevin?
I'll just echo what Tor just said. Thank you to John and Melissa, and I see Janet there and the finance staff for and any other staff that was a part of this. I'm sure all the departments were. It was smooth, and I think it's a good point that Tor made, that even though we're not saying a lot about this now, there's been countless meetings to get here. So that's why I'm not feeling a need to go into the details, because we've already been there. Those positions that were added, I remember at that meeting, and I got the commitment from Mr. Leach that, you know, this was basically his plan to get the city in the order that he would like staffing wise, and that he doesn't have an intention of adding staff endlessly. You know, I believe that he and his team have a good vision, and you know, this isn't a perfect situation. Of course, we would like to have a lot more money to be able to do a lot more things with, but I'm grateful for where we're at and how we got here. Thank you very much.
And to echo the word that keeps getting bantered around here, the teamwork. Mr. Leach, you've done a phenomenal job in the time that you've come in, and we've addressed that in your review. And I think one of the things that we've appreciated through this budget process is the team that you've envisioned and then put together and then brought together to work this through. I feel like in the worst of times, we're in probably the best position we could be in. And a lot of that is on your shoulders. And I thank you for bringing all the folks together to be able to do all of this for us and with us.
Yeah, of course, I want to express my gratitude as well. As a first timer through the budget process, it felt excruciating to have so many meetings, and now I see the purpose of that. And so I'm grateful for the foresight in doing that. I wanted to point out, when I had my orientation as a new assembly member and we met with department heads, I asked the department heads what keeps you awake at night. And our electric department head said that being able to find linesmen or linemen, I'm not sure if it has an S in it, was keeping him awake at night. And the expense of having to bring people in, we have 4 positions, we haven't been able to fill them. And so sometimes an increase greater than ordinary is required to be able to get the people we need, and that will ultimately save in per diem and other expenses, plus having people hired locally, if and when we're able to fill those positions, allows that money to stay in Sitka. So sometimes just looking at the numbers doesn't tell the full story. So I appreciated the opportunity at my orientation to hear from department heads and to be able to start working on the problems that will make Sitka work better, make our departments function better. So I appreciate this budget process very much. Thanks.
Crystal? No? Okay. Yes, for me, this was one of the most enjoyable budget processes I've been through. I don't think I ever left feeling frustrated that I either didn't get an answer, or that something wasn't clear to me, or that I didn't understand the budget that I was looking at, or my questions didn't get answered. So I do appreciate staff for that. John, we are adding staff in this budget. I believe in the initiatives that you've brought forward and the reasoning behind those staff. As you and me have talked, as you've said, and as your staff now knows, they must prove up on those. This next year will be extremely critical in that. And if there is a position that's not pulling its weight, that's not getting the benefit for our citizens, we're going to reevaluate that. And I know that you're going to reevaluate that on a rolling basis. So I am extremely comfortable going forward with your initiatives. That's why we bring on administrators, is to see their vision through. And I know that the efficiencies gained within a few years will be well worth the time spent now. So I thank you for accomplishing those that people have wanted to for years and never have. Anything else from the assembly on this one? Sarah?
Okay, on the motion to approve ordinance 2021-09 on first reading, Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbach,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Ms. Himshoot,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
No.
Ms. Duncan,
Yes.
And Mr. Knox.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1 on item D.
Sorry, John, I should have given you a minute to say anything there if you needed, but you have another chance after this one. Item E, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2021-10 on first reading, adopting the budget and capital improvement plan for all enterprise funds for the fiscal year July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022, amending rates in Title 15 Public Utilities of the Sitka General Code and adopting mortgage rates and other harbor fees.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 21-10. Is there any public comment?
Richard Ween. I feel that I must quote that famous purple dinosaur, Barney. I love you. You love me. But the important thing is it's in a platonic sense. I love you, John, and you've done an outstanding job. Melissa, I love you too, and Ms. Schwartz. And I think you've all done incredible jobs. The key here is that what staff does is try to put the pieces together of a budget and make it work. And they truly have done a good job in a tough situation. But you also have to shine the light and reflect on the assembly in how they looked at the pieces, how critical they were in their analysis. And I still love you all. But the important thing is that with these enterprise funds and increases, it means that costs are increasing for Sitkans continually. And when that happens, coupled with the general aspect of price increases and potentially coming serious inflation, it reduces our affordability. And that is the key. And it is very difficult to parse out, despite the fact that I've been to every meeting, how these basic issues will be addressed, because affordability is the key for the survivability of our beloved Sitka, which I love.
Is there any other comments to the ordinance? Assembly deliberation? Valerie?
I don't understand why a meter reader would have to be increased 42.97%. In fiscal year 21, that position was funded at 2306. For 22, we're doing it 3297. We're doing about 20% for the linemen. And I have talked to people that worked at the electrical department that are no longer working there. And it wasn't about the money. It's about the director
Point
and
of order, Mr.
who
Mayor.
is, pardon?
Wasn't this the last budget that we just voted on? Or was this?
This is enterprise funds. These are all electric department positions.
Yes, we are on enterprise funds. And
you know
I
what?
find
I'm
the
done.
comments to be
I'm done.
germane.
Never mind.
Valerie, I find your comments to be germane, and you can continue if you'd like.
My apologies.
You know, I have nothing against staff. Melissa, I think you've done an awesome job. John, you as well. But it troubles me when we keep adding and adding to our debt and nobody asks a question. I've asked you personally, I've asked at this table, why? I've reviewed the previous budget meetings. I've never seen one of you ask why a 50% or almost 50% rate increase? Why 20% rate increases? We can't keep sustaining that. They're not going to, the positions are not going to pay for themselves, and you hire people, you know, it's better to do like a signing bonus, increase moving expenses. But once you start adding that extra money in there, it's never going to go away. Thanks.
Any other comments from the assembly? I guess for me, if you want to call the capital improvement plan and the rate increases for the enterprise funds exciting. The most exciting part about this budgetary cycle is the rate studies and the review of the long range plans that are built into most of these enterprise funds. That's something I've been pushing for years. I know that it needs to be done, and hopefully we can get those started sooner than later, because to me, that's always been the key to maintaining lower rates and setting our rates where they need to be. Right now, we're based off of a long-range infrastructure plan that may or may not be sustainable, and so we're going to be reviewing that and seeing what we can do for the rates. And that's process. It really does excite me. So yes, there are increases this year. I know I asked to potentially hold off on rate increases until the rate studies came back. So when rate studies come back, if there is recommendations to alter the rates, I'd really like to see those, hopefully down and not up, but we'll see what those say. So anything else from the Assembly? Sarah?
Okay, on the motion to approve ordinance 2021-10 on first reading, Ms. Himshoot,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Knox,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
No.
Ms. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
and Mayor Eisenbeit.
Yes.
The motion passes 6-1 on item E.
Which brings us to item F. This is a discussion direction decision on the Harbor Mountain Bypass Cell Tower parcel lease. John, did you want to start this one out, you or Amy, or?
I can introduce it, Mayor, while Amy comes up here. I'll need her help. I'm trying to flip to the page here to make sure I get the dates right, but I believe it was August of last year. We were approached by an organization called Vertical Bridge, who wanted to lease some municipal property for a cell phone tower. We were directed by the Assembly to go out to RFP for competitive bid. Went out to competitive bid. The original company that contacted us is the one that they were the only ones that submitted a bid. They made an offer on the value, or they made an offer on what they would like to give us for a lease rate. Amy did some pretty hard-nosed negotiating, and we settled on a rate that I believe is actually a little bit better than what's happening in some of the other areas of Southeast Alaska. We compared it to Juneau, and we're doing pretty well on the rate that we've agreed upon, as well as a programmed annual rent escalator and some revenue sharing that's offered there. So the terms of the lease should be here in the memo. And sorry, Amy, if I just took everything you were going to say, but please go ahead if there's something else you want to add.
No, I just wanted to add quickly, essentially, we wanted to bring this forward to the Assembly to make sure that you were comfortable with the terms that we've gotten to at this point before we went to the next steps of preparing the lease and the ordinance, just so we weren't bringing you a finalized document that then you perhaps had questions on or wanted to see changes for. So it's just us bringing this forward to you tonight was just a hope for kind of some efficiency and making sure that you were comfortable before we finalized more of the documentation on the lease and the ordinance, but those will come back to you for your approval as well.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments, concerns?
When I read through it, it looked reasonable. 5,000 square feet, unimproved, $1,000 a month plus a cut. That it struck me as reasonable. So I would support bringing it back as an ordinance.
Rebecca?
One of the things I saw in there was the disguising or camouflaging the tower, and so I'm happy with this. I'm not objecting in any way to anything that's before us tonight, but what would be a way of, I've seen those fake tree towers. Is that what you guys were getting at with?
So we have not gotten exact specifics of what the camouflaging or blending options will be. We were kind of told that once the site plan develops and we start to negotiate the terms of the lease, that we could get a little bit more specific into those details of what exactly we'd like to see. I think the main things that they're looking to do is to preserve as many trees that are in the area to reduce visual impact, but there might be some opportunities to, with color or kind of those fake tree toppers to
Right. I
try and
appreciate your
reduce
eye
visual
to
impact.
that, like the thoroughness of thinking about that ahead, and they were very clear about trying to leave trees and kind of tucking their driveway in behind. And so I don't have any real concerns. I just was wondering where you guys were headed with that. And so thanks.
I know those fake cactus cell phone towers look very realistic. Don't know if that would go well here or not, but Amy, I did have a couple questions for you. Did we review how much it would cost to install our own tower and then lease it out?
We did not, no.
Okay, and then can we install our equipment on this tower? Say if we need a repeater for the police department.
I don't know that off the top, but I can certainly try and find that out. For you.
Because for their, in my estimation, still a fairly generous lease rate. I know that we would get some of the sublease money, but it may be extremely beneficial to be able to put on fire department, police department, harbor department repeaters on this tower as part of the deal. And then I guess it would just be interesting for my own knowledge, if we do receive 33% of a sublease, if we built our own tower, we could receive 100% of that. So, I don't know how many people are interested in additionally leasing that tower, but that entire amount of revenue could come to us. Kevin?
I was just going to say, I like it. I think it's a fair deal that you've worked on, and thank you for, there's a lot of work that you put into it. Thank you.
Anything else from the assembly? I guess at this point, it sounds like it should come forward as an ordinance. I think you did outstanding work, judging by the lack of need to comment on everything. So thank you. So that'll bring us to item G then.
I move to approve the RFP for the sale of former Sitka Community Hospital site and associated properties.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 21-080. Is there any public comment?
Good evening, Richard Ween. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that the best and most appropriate plan would be, financially anyway, is to give Search the building, because it is, when you have a healthcare facility, you are under regulatory guidance as far as maintenance and so forth. So it would get rid of the building part of it for us as an expense. And all we do is lease the property over a long time at an appropriate amount. It would help ensure continued revenue if the appropriate amount was chosen. Any money that we receive through a sale goes to the permanent fund. I don't know, but if you look at the market, it's 35,000, the Dow, and it went down 500 points. But I do have to say, Zoom went up $12, though the market in itself went down. Bottom line is, if it goes into the permanent fund, 67% approximately, as I recall, is in equities, and those will be exposed. Those are exposed. Just as they are exposed in your 401ks and so forth, and we can watch any amount of money disappear. However, if we have a revenue stream, that will keep coming into Sitka, and it'll keep coming into our general fund. So lease and give the building to Search. If you look at, again, the the RFP, it is totally built for search. If you look at the scoring, and that's on page 21 of the RFP, it is totally search. If they don't get an A+ on this for scoring, I don't know what will. The bottom line is how many services work out of this hospital? Well, we have physical therapy, we have long-term care, and through Mountainside Clinic, we have the mental health as well as other things. So it is in their interest totally not to relocate or have to relocate. And it is in their interests to support the community through long-term lease. But you are the governing body and you are responsible for making this decision. The good news is it looks like Governor DeSantis in Florida is going to sue the CDC. So there may be some legal stuff that we can utilize. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment on approving the RFP? Assembly deliberation? Tor?
I would say if it's, I think it would be appropriate to go into executive session. I don't know if we're ready to do that at this point, but I can go ahead and make the motion then. I move to go into executive session with Planning Director Amy Ansley to discuss the independent appraisal for the former Sitka Community Hospital building and surrounding properties and its potential incorporation into the RFP under the statutory category of discussing matters, the immediate knowledge of which would be adversely affect the city and borough of Sitka.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to go into executive session to discuss matters which would, the immediate knowledge of which would adversely affect the city and borough of Sitka. Sarah, is there public comment on this? I don't remember. I thought so. Is there any public comment? No, sir, it wasn't a darn, it was a question, but thank you.
But I was talking about my socks. Darn.
Darn tough.
I'm against the assembly going in to the executive session to discuss this. And the reason is because there really will be no advantage on the knowledge of the assessment, which is may even be tainted as we speak. The bottom line is you're not going to ask for less than the assessment. And I don't think that negotiating skills will ask for more than the assessment. And so I think the public who has paid for this, it is not going to be some big secret deal and that you need to discuss it here. And I think it would be actually a good notion as to where the city is going with this. I don't think you're going to gain anything by discussing this in executive session. So, but we'll find out sooner or later.
Is there any other public comment for the assembly going into executive session? Sarah? Oh, yes, Valerie.
I would like to say that I have a tendency to agree with former Assembly Member Dr. Wayne, and I also want to address conflict of interest. We, as the city of Sitka, have paid for several opinions from Wolfer, Brett, Cartledge, Brookings on conflict of interest and extreme bias. And we also have on the city website under the Committees and Commissions Police Department documents, a conflict of interest memo from Clifford Grow dated March 30th, 2005. And it talks about, as used in this section, substantial financial interest means an expectation of receiving a non-trivial pecuniary or material benefit. A substantial financial interest of a person includes any substantial financial interest of that person's immediate family. A person has a substantial financial interest in an organization in which that person has an ownership interest or is a director, officer, or employee. A person has a substantial financial interest in a decision if a substantial financial financial interest of that person will vary with the outcome of the decision. As used in this section, immediate family of a person means anyone related to that person by blood, marriage, or adoption, or who lives in that person's household. I would like to discuss this also if we do go in executive session, because I think we have two members that even though they say they don't have a conflict of interest, I think they have bias and reason to want to push this along, because if we don't vote for it, one person's spouse might get fired, the other person's office might go away. And it's like, people question what is ethical. And I know that I'm in the minority, so I'm just stating my opinion. Thank you.
Is there any other assembly comment before we vote to go into executive session? Sarah?
And the motion to go into executive session, Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Ms. Duncan,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbach,
Yes.
and Ms. Himshoot.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes 7-0, and we'll be meeting in room 3, just down the hall.
Motion to reconvene.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are reconvened as the assembly in regular session. Is there any other discussion tonight on item G?
Yes, do we just need to say that we ask staff to make the changes or the
I think that
adjustments?
comes in that can come in a motion.
Well, or do we need to make another motion? So I'm asking Brian. Okay. Which we already did. Can that be a friendly amendment?
I accept that.
So it's been moved and seconded to, let me pull this up here. No, it's on here, isn't it? It's been moved and seconded to approve the RFP for the sale of the former Sitka Community Hospital site and associated properties with the revisions made in executive session. Is there any public comment? Not on that particular motion. Did we?
Yeah. Okay.
That was just a friendly amendment that they did.
Any further assembly discussion on this before we vote? Sarah?
Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Moser,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes.
Ms. Duncan,
Yes.
Ms. Himshoot,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
and Mr. Knox.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 on item G.
Brings us to item H.
I move to amend municipal attorney Brian E. Hansen's employee agreement dated September 19th, 2016 by adding to section 4 entitled salary the following: effective July 1st, 2018 fiscal year 2019 with satisfactory performance, employee shall receive an annual 1.5% increase in pay, which is consistent with the pay increase provided to employees under the CBS Personnel Policies Handbook. Employee shall receive retroactive pay for said annual increases.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the First Amendment to the employee agreement between the city and Brian Hansen. Is there any public comment? Assembly deliberation on this? And for note, Mr. Hansen is comfortable discussing this not in executive session.
I would just say that, especially considering the tone of the evaluation we had before, I think this is well deserved, and I feel very comfortable with it, and I hope that Brian is happy with it.
Kevin?
I think it's also important to note that Brian has not received any changes in salary for the last several years. I can't remember exactly how many it was, but it's been quite a while since there's been any changes to his compensation.
And additionally, Brian was the only employee that did not receive a cost of living adjustment in his contract. So this just brings him in line with every other municipal employee. Any further deliberation? Sarah?
Okay, on the motion to amend Mr. Hansen's employment agreement, Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Himshoot,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Ms. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Knox,
Yes.
and Mr. Moser.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
That brings us to persons to be heard. This is public participation for any item on or off tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes. Seeing no public comment, that will bring us to reports. For my report, and I think the administrator will probably cover some of this as well, but we did have a brief meeting with Senator Sullivan when he came up. We met in the office for a little bit and then went out and toured the potential haul out site at GPIP and then also went to our cold storage plant and explored the bulkhead wall there. From that spot, we also showed him where the seaplane base would be located. Fortunately, Senator Sullivan is extremely excited about the grant opportunities for a haul out at GPIP and has asked us to work with his staff to help fortify our grant application there. So I think that's promising news. I think any support that we can get will definitely help, but it definitely seemed like a higher priority list for him. After that, I went to a chamber hosted luncheon and heard some different business entities in town talk about some of the struggles and some of the opportunities that they've had during COVID. Just kind of giving the senator an overview of, all the way from ma and pa type establishments to large multiple city employers in town were represented. So quite an overview there. I think that's all I had. It seems like 2 weeks has been a long time, but John?
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, I would like to reiterate that Senator Sullivan made a visit. We thank him for his time to come and talk to the community and some of the other community stakeholders to see what our needs and concerns are here in Sitka. And yes, he's very excited about the opportunities that we have available at GPIP for a potential haul out. Another thing I'd like to point out is multiple times in the tour, he asked, is it true that Sitka's all renewable energy? You're 100% hydro? And I said, absolutely. We are only on diesels as an emergency backup and to test them, but we are all 100% hydro renewable energy sources. So he did encourage us to use that as leverage in selling ourselves and pursuing some of these grant opportunities. A couple other things I want to hit very quickly. I'm going to run this by the EOC, but we've typically been in lockstep with the state on some of the COVID mitigation measures. And, proud to see that our vaccination rate is up around 70% now for people that are at least partially vaccinated. So the state has, I think it was last Thursday, issued guidance that they have rescinded their masking policies in state buildings, and they've taken away the 100% telework, and now it's a modified telework schedule. So they're encouraging people to come back into the office, kind of a hybrid telework schedule. I think we were already on that hybrid telework schedule anyway. But I want to kind of give that state guidance to the EOC, see what their thoughts are on it, and then potentially make some changes for at least the city controlled facilities. And then finally, I just want to make a pitch for the spring cleanup. There's a couple important things here. So we do the spring cleanup every year, and it was an exceptional event this year. We had a total of a couple different places. At the Jarvis Street transfer station, 1,065 individual drop-offs, which was 66 more than last year. The total tonnage was 203.8 tons. Last year, it was 168 tons. So we far surpassed that. Total amount of scrap metal was just under 150,000 pounds. White goods, meaning refrigerators and appliances, 20,000 pounds. A total of 113 vehicles collected. I didn't even know we had that many around, but apparently there's a lot of vehicles that are gone. 51 refrigerators collected. At the wastewater treatment plant, that was huge. We have, that's where we get the hazardous material. We filled 23 cartons. The typical average is 8 cartons. Over 20 drums were filled with hazardous materials. So that's 3 more drums than average. They did some great work over there. I don't know if you saw the public service announcement or the posts that were on social media about that. A lot of wood this year. I'm surprised that people are throwing wood away with lumber prices, but a lot of wood this year, but a lot fewer hot tubs. And the thing I'd like to let the community know of is this is a free service that the city and borough of Sitka provides to kind of clean up the community. We're still being charged for it. The contractors still charge us to remove that garbage and to ship it out of here. So we still pay as normal as part of our contractual obligations. So again, that's a free service we offer to the community to help beautify and to to get rid of some of the unwanted waste. Thank you. Brian?
On Friday night, I attended a staff going away party for Jay Sweeney. We had a great time. I just don't know if he did this at the last meeting, but I'd like to personally commend Jay for his service to the city and borough of Sitka and say that this community was lucky to have a highly skilled, hardworking, integrity-filled person in that financial director's position. And I had a great time working with him. Thank you.
Any liaison representatives tonight? Tor?
Yeah, kind of talking about GPIP. We had a meeting and another one tomorrow, specifically mostly about the haul out. We did get a proposal. And the board asked for some clarification on some points. And it's back up again, I believe it's tomorrow. And we'll see. There's some challenges there. And eventually I think it will be coming to this body. I'm not 100% sure if it'll have a recommendation from the GPIP board or not. And the planning commission will be now meeting an hour earlier every night to work on the tourism planning plan. But we had some good kind of laying some ground rules and things for doing that. But I believe starting next week at 6, starting at 6, because I think they might have been the last one to still start at 7 of all. We used to all start at 7, but now they were the last one. So now they're going to be starting at 6 specifically for that first hour to be working on that for probably the foreseeable future. And by the way, I was one of those people in line at the cleanup. It was a long line.
Kevin?
Today, I attended the Parks and Rec Committee meeting. I think everyone remember a few weeks or months ago, actually, we applied for a grant with the National Park Service to help us with consulting type services with managing our parks and recreational areas, and we were awarded that. And John can fill me in or correct me with anything that I say that needs help with, but they introduced themselves actually today at the meeting via Zoom. And something that I really liked is they talked about they're not interested in just coming up with ideas for new things we can't afford, but trying to help us come up with a plan to manage what we already have and to improve upon those. And it seems like some members of the committee too are very active and helpful and being a part of that. So I appreciate that.
Rebecca?
Oh, just when you drive by the fire hall or stop by the fire hall, note that beautiful bed out front. You can thank Tree and Landscape for that.
Kevin?
Tomorrow night, Ports and Harbors will be meeting. It's got 3 things on their agenda, revisiting or further discussion of the Liveaboard Island resident garbage fee rates, the bulk fuel tax, and then they're going to be discussing a potential B&B in Thompson Harbor.
Historic preservation was canceled for this month, no agenda items. And then the other one, health needs and human services, that one, just a reminder, that got moved from this week. It's going to be next Wednesday at the noon hour for 1 hour. So if you want to show up and participate, you're welcome to do that. Of course, they took the goals that we passed and they're running with it. So they did an outline and they're going to go over that at this upcoming meeting. So I'll have a greater update on both of those at the next assembly.
All right, seems to have taken care of liaison. Sarah?
I just wanted to remind folks, we have vacancies on a number of boards and commissions, the Animal Hearing Board, Building Department Appeals Board, Historic Preservation, Library Commission, Port and Harbors, Tree and Landscape. If folks are interested, they can contact our office and we'll get them set up with an application.
Great, thank you. Any other reports this evening? Valerie?
You all got the copy of the letter from Amy Morrison on the school board chastising me for accusing them of asking for the Norwegian Cruise Lines funds. I didn't say the school board asked for it. I said the school district had people requesting. We had an email from a former mayor that asked that the funds go to the school district. And we had just an email last day or so, somebody wanting us to pay off the Performing Arts Center. So my apologies to the school board if she thought I was being malevolent. Thank you.
I didn't get that communication.
I didn't get that.
Is there any other reports, other reports? All right, that would bring us to adjournment.
I move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Assembly. We are adjourned.